Good morning everyone, and it's a beautiful April morning. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and I thought you might like a whistle-stop garden tour of some of the projects I've done over the last 12 months and some of the projects I've got planned for the next 12 months. And there's Simba, my little chihuahua, relaxing in the sunshine. Let's go to the front of the cottage, and this is one of the first projects I did, the Formal Parterre. This was a cottage garden. I dug it all out, I saved many of the plants, and I planted this Formal Parterre. And these are all Buxus sempervirens. Of course, you're taking a chance with Buxus at the moment because there's box blight, box tree caterpillar, but I was prepared to take the risk. I'm not going to prune this year. I'm going to leave it, let it grow and get established. Down here, I have the tulips, and over there as well. Those tulips were planted quite late in January. Bit of an experiment, but apparently you can plant them late and they will give you flowers. And in fact, indeed, these are starting to flower. You can see at the top of many of these here, there are flower buds coming. Over here, Trachycarpus Border. This is one of the second projects. I brought these with me. These were in pots. Cut out a perfect circle, lined it with bricks, and it gives a lovely Mediterranean feel. Let's have a look at Simba. He's not a well dog, sadly. He's quite an old man now. He's 15. He's got a heart problem and a collapsing trachea, but we love him and we'll look after him. Now then, this trough, this stone trough, I found this in the front garden, dug it out, moved it here, and I planted it with these lovely sempervirens. It just makes a little feature. And actually these are really starting to take off now. Look at that tiny little baby there. They call these hens and chicks. These are the hens and these are the little chicks around the outside of them. One of these is called Sempervivum arachnoideum, and it's called arachnoideum because it makes a little web on the top. And you think of arachnoideum, sounds like arachnid, which is Latin for spider. And there's the spider's web. Let's go and have a look at the Mediterranean scented border. This was a rough border here, had lots of cottage garden plants in it. I dug them all out. I quite like the low maintenance aspect of gardening, so I dug all the plants out. I dug the soil over and enriched it, and then I planted in Mediterranean plants. So I've got lavender and rosemary and thyme, and these are little box plants. I intend cutting them into perfect cubes. And I put my olive trees in. The olive trees are looking a little bit sorry at the moment, but they'll be fine. I'll give them a prune shortly. And those little chrome balls just set it off. And there's weed fabric and gravel to help me with the weeding. There's the bamboo hedge I put in, and there's the bamboo barrier. And that stops that cotton invasive plant bamboo. And I hope that will make a lovely barrier between the Mediterranean scented border and the social area at the back of the cottage. The social area at the back of the cottage is where I've got my exotic tropical border, which is just starting to come into life. And then round the back, we've got our tree fern and fernery. This is quite shaded here, as you can see on three sides. It does get the sun in the midday. I put in this path, that was one of the projects, and then I planted out lots of ferns. And we've got our collection of tree ferns. Several videos about these on my channel. Winter protection, general care. Happily, they're all starting to spring back into life. I put that patio in. This was just an area of concrete. And now we've got lots of ferns, and it's a lovely, cool place to sit in the high summer. This is Mind Your Own Business. A lovely carpet of green. Look at this here. They're all the same. They're all starting to come back to life. Look, tree fern fronds. All of them have got new fronds in. Here's another good example that we can see from this level. Aren't they amazing? And very soon this area will be covered in an umbrella of tree fern fronds. Let's go and have a look at the exotic tropical border. Not much going on that you can see, but if you get in close, you can see there's Colocasia pink china starting to come up. And if you look closely, there's plants all around this border. There's another little tree fern. That was surplus to requirements. I didn't have space for it when I moved Pan into the fernery. But again, down here, lots of little plants coming up. There's another pink china. That's a red oak poker. Here's the Musa Basju, the green bananas. These were left in the ground all winter. I protected them and did a video on it. and they're growing really well. That's amazing. And then down here, if we look closely, and this border is full of them. Cannas. There's a canna starting to come up. Tried another experiment, left my cannas in the ground, and they're doing really well. So that's the exotic tropical border. And there's my shadow. Let's move around here, because there's an area I want to show you. This is going to be a project this year. This is where I had my colocasias last year, about 30 colocasias. Yeah, a bit of a tragedy actually, not good news on the colocasias. I don't think they've survived the winter. This is going to be dug out, and I'm going to make a little formal goldfish pond. I have made a wildlife pond, which I'll show you in a moment, but there's not going to be any fish in the wildlife pond, and I do like goldfish. I'm going to make a little formal rectangular goldfish pond. And there's a goldfish which is going to have a pump attached, and that will be spewing water, so there'll be the sound of water here. These are my hydrangea Annabelle. They're only here for protection really. I'm going to bring them out, but one thing I learnt last year is they're actually quite delicate. You can get a strong version of these called Annabelle Strong. These are not the strong version, and when they grow up, the wind very easily breaks the beautiful blooms off, so I'm going to put some support in for those. These are three new Gunnera plants we just bought locally off Facebook Marketplace. They're going in the bog garden. I'll tell you about that in a moment. That's going to be dug out. There's going to be a lovely formal goldfish pool there. That's the piggery there. Interesting little space. The pig used to live in there in the olden days, and there's the pig's little doorway. Can you see? That's where the pig used to come and go. It's been bricked up now. I've not decided what to do with this space, so that's on the back burner, but I'll think of something. Right, there's a lovely holly hedge, which has to be cut, but can't cut it at the moment because there's a blackbird nesting in it, so that will have to wait till the edge of the summer. Look at these bay trees. I was given these by a neighbour. They had them outside their front door, and they were really badly damaged by the winter frost. Anyway, they gave them to me and I've rescued them, repotted them, given them a good prune. Stay tuned and we'll see how these do, but the signs are good because they're already starting to show signs of life. For example, if you look there just where my finger is, there's a little green shoot, and I hope within a few months that will be back to a ball shape. Now, these are the olive trees I rescued. Great little video on olive tree rescue, and last year they did incredibly well. Let's get in and have a look. I've just done an experiment, an extreme pruning experiment. I've got two identical plants. I pruned that one back to nothing, and we'll see how it does. That one I've left alone. Let's see over the course of time which of these two performs best. Now, here's the garage, and at the back of the garage, and by the way, that's where I keep all my plants for the winter, and that's where the colocasias were, and I think they've all died sadly. Let's go around the back of the garage, because there's a really useful space at the back of my garage, which I call the compound. And this is where I do a lot of the work in the garden. I also tried growing some vegetable here last year. Those are hugelkultur bulk bag raised beds, and I grew some cabbages and some broccoli in here. And funnily enough, look at that. That's a remainder from last year. I think it's a broccoli looking at it. And I'm leaving it there because I want to know if there's anything I can do with these. I wonder if these will turn into seeds. And I think I've just spotted a butterfly, so already the butterflies are arriving at Mark's Garden UK. A couple of Belfast sinks there, another project waiting to happen. And look at that old mangle that was left here. I do have at the back of the garage a dustbin which collects all the water off the shed roof, which I use as a plunge. Little homemade cold frame here. I'm going to start planting some veg and some tomatoes. And these are all my agapanthus. Now, it's a sad story. I've had these for probably a decade. They've always been outside all winter. They've always done well. This year, for some reason, I'm not seeing any signs of life. That will be a tragedy if I've lost all my agapanthus, but that's what gardening's like. You live and learn, don't you? There's a Gunnera that suffered the same fate. That's a sweet fennel, which I found in my driveway. And in this pot, there are also 3 artichokes. We had such a cold spell this year. Artichokes are supposed to be hardy, but there's no signs of any growth from these artichokes. I might put some sunflowers in there. Just various cuttings and bits of old rubbish. That's a bag full of homemade compost. And there's some gravel. Let's go through these gates. This is the other side of those gates, and if you watch my videos you'll be familiar with this area. I've spent a lot of time here recently creating the wildlife pond. There's the soil I dug out by hand using my long-handled Irish spade. Last year that was a wildflower meadow, but I've buried it with soil out of that hole. There are some seeds or some wildflowers starting to come back. These self-seeded from last year's crop, but I'm going to reseed this with wildflowers. I've got them already prepared in a trug, ready to be sown, probably today or tomorrow. Now, I found these poppies self-seeded in the parterre at the front of the garden. I just ripped them up, ripped the tops off them, dug a little hole and shoved each one in, and they've all come back to life. So we'll have a lovely little display of poppies here. This will be wildflowers, and I'll have to put some kind of walkway through here so that I can walk through and enjoy them. And then walking through the back here, there's a lovely view over the open countryside from here. Just look at that. Over there in the distance is our local canal, so what I intend doing here is creating a viewing platform, some kind of deck area, raised up with steps going down to where the wildlife pond is. Look at these big boulders. Huge boulders here. The camera's just gone out of focus. Let's bring it back. There we are. These big boulders are moving over there. My neighbour Mark is going to help me with his mini digger, and we're going to lift them over there, and there's going to be a bog garden there next to the wildlife pond. This is my wildlife log pile. Down the back of there is a hibernaculum, which is a great big hole I dug out, filled with crocks and half broken plant pots, and then covered it in roofing felt, and that's where the wildlife can go and hibernate. There's my buddleias. Now look at this here. It's a flowering currant. Had no idea about this plant until recently when I did this video about pruning these buddleias, and I pointed it out because it was covered in bees. It's quite early at the moment, so it's still quite cool. And two subscribers, I think Christopher Jones and Smithy, told me that this is a flowering currant. I must do a video on that. I can see a bee up here buzzing around. Let's see if I can catch it. There in there, can you see that bee? Early morning bee gathering nectar on this beautiful plant. Look at that there. Exquisite. And the scent that comes off that is unbelievable. It's powerful. Just like the scent that you get off the buddleias. Now, we're nearly at the end of the tour actually. This is my no-dig garden plot, no-dig veg plot here, and this is the spoil which came from over there. There was a raised bed there. Some lovely fruit trees there which produce apples. That was a huge conifer. There was a massive conifer just there. It went all the way up as high as that telegraph pole. Cut it down. It was far too big for the place. So it's there. It's full of wildlife and nests, so I leave that well alone. And then yesterday, I decided to do something around the base of this beautiful old Bramley apple tree. There was a raised bed here, and it was about, you can see there, the soil came up to about here, and it was damaging the tree actually. So I took it out, and I took all the soil away. And that's the pile of soil there, which I put through a trommel, so it's lovely soil that. And then yesterday, I raked it over, and I put these old mini raised beds, which I made last year. This soil has now been sown with wildflowers, and those have got sunflower seeds in, so I'm hoping to make a bit of a feature. Within about a month, I'm hoping that that whole space there will be full of beautiful pollinating wildflowers and sunflowers just at the base of the apple tree. Along here, I don't know if you can see it, but this is my holly hedge. I did a video on taking hardwood holly hedge cuttings, and I want to make a hedge along here because I want to divide that space off. That's going to be a real garden. Happily, every single one of these, and I've looked at them with a fine-tooth comb and in detail, every single one of these is living, and many of them are starting to shoot new buds. And I'll just go along the line here and see if I can find one that I can point out. Up there, look. Can you see there at the end of that? There's a video on how to take hardwood cuttings, but imagine if I'd had to buy 150 holly plants, and imagine the money I've saved there, and what a wonderful learning experience. I would encourage you to have a go if you possibly can, because I've got a lovely holly hedge here. Look there, cute little berry on that one. That hasn't grown, that was on the plant. before I transplanted the cutting. But on this one here, in there, I don't know if you can see, lots of little growths, little new leaves starting to appear. Wonderful. So pleased with that. Gives me such a sense of satisfaction. And as I say, this is going to be a lovely real garden, which I can see from my kitchen window, as you can see down there. So that brings us to the end of the little springtime garden tour. I've captured it on film for posterity, and we'll be able to see how it develops and goes over the year ahead and see what happens. Lots of plans for this open space. I want to divide this up into different zones and areas. And down there, I've got another gate. I might make that a little fenced off area, leave the gate open, give plants away, possibly even sell plants, we'll see. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this garden tour. Look at the sky. Oh, look at that lamppost. There's a little blue tits nesting in the top of that. I don't know whether we'll see them coming and going while I'm stood here talking, but there's a hole right in the top and they go down into that hole and they have a nest in there. Lovely safe place to nest. Anyway, that's all from Rose Cottage near Nantwich in Cheshire, and I'll see you soon for some more gardening adventures. Bye for now.